How are the ideas of the first woman to hold a government office of the United States to win an election? Well, Jeanette Rankin was definitely a woman with many characteristics that held her to be an awesome leader that she is today. Running for election was Jeanette's main idea in life. She wanted to help women in many different ways. I may be the first woman a member of Congress, but I definitely won't be the last. She was the first woman to be elected in Congress, one of the first few suffragists elected to Congress, and only member of Congress to vote against U.S. participation in both World War I and World War II. After running for the election for several years, she decided to divide her time between pacifism and social welfare. Spending time with family and just helping people she saw in need was one of her most important things. Jeanette Rankin started off her career by being a social worker after attending college. She felt that she wanted to help anybody in any way that she possibly could. Women's rights was one of the most important things to her. She wanted to be part of the women's suffrage, became the first woman to speak in the Montana legislature, organized and spoke for both the Equal Franchise Society. She also, after then, spoke for the Suffrage March campaign, which was supported by Susan B. Anthony. Returned back to Montana with being successful in the suffrage campaign. She wanted to make sure Montana was treated fairly. After working for peace and election to the Congress, she ran for the office in 1916. First woman to be elected to the U.S. Congress and the first woman to be a national legislator in any Western democracy. She positioned to work for peace and women's rights and against child labor. And she wrote a weekly column in a newspaper that everybody looked forward to seeing. She wanted to make sure that women had the same rights as men, and no matter what it was. She voted against U.S. entry into World War I, voted for pro-war measures as well as working for the political reforms including civil liberties, suffrage, birth control, equal pay, and child welfare. Opened the congressional debate on the Susan B. Anthony Amendment. Rankin's first anti-vote sealed her political fate. After World War I, she continued to work for the peace through the Women's Internal League for Peace and Freedom. Also began work for the National Consumers League. She became the field secretary at the WILPF and lobbied for the peace. She also lobbied for the Women's Peace Union, worked for anti-war constitutional amendment, lobbied for American cooperation with the World Court and for labor reforms, and to end child labor, including for the passage of the Shepherdstown Act of 1921. After all of those things, she decided to run for election one more time. As she did, she voted against no to war. After the second term in Congress, she decided to start working in the government point of view. She also knew how to take care of people. Taking care of people was one of the most important things. She took care of her mother whenever she was not feeling well. She took her all over the world just to visit, to see anything that she wanted to see before she died. She was active in the anti-war movement. Often she was invited to speak or honored by the young anti-war activists and feminists. She was offered to speak at any big functional thing. She never turned anybody down. She thought that she wanted everyone to know that the women have the same right as any man does. With all the decisions that are being made today in the world, she has made a very big impact on today's society on women. She has methods that have made a big impact that are still used today. After writing this, I did not realize how important this woman was and how important other people could be just like her.